Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Good Saturday morning, DFW. It's a beautiful fall day. The air is a little crisp, and I like it. It's great football weather. We've got a jam-packed show today. We're going to be talking movies. We're going to be talking a special nonprofit, and you will meet the man behind the curtains, so to speak. But my first guest is Dr. Lyn Berutti. We just met actually about a week ago. She is the physician owner of Dynamic Life Health Center in Southlake. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. Now, as I was looking in your background, you have practiced medicine now for 23 years, and you have helped so many people. But you're really focused now on anti-aging, and I know that is a huge, huge subject these days. So when we talk about anti-aging medicine, what are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about really looking at a lot of risk factors that we can improve through preventative measures.
So I know that the baby boomers, myself included, I'm among the younger baby boomers. I was born in 1963, but I can't even imagine myself getting old. I really don't. I don't see myself with gray hair. I don't see myself with wrinkles. I, will not get old. Am I your target? I mean, who is your patient?
Well, I like to catch people in a younger age group to start in the 30s to prevent anti-aging, or even preventing now with things that you can do. And I'm going to talk about that a little later about the tips for anti-aging that I have.
Absolutely.
But certainly we target everyone,
now,
men and women.
In terms of cosmetic surgery is big. And if somebody is practicing good, healthy living, do they need to go under the knife?
I think it's a matter of personal preference. Of course, we want to look at how we're aging on the inside, not just on the outside. But I think some people, if they feel like they need to have cosmetic surgery, that itself is not going to extend your lifespan, but it might make you feel better. You might have a more positive attitude, which can have an impact on how you age.
Do patients ask you that? Do they say, Doc, I'm thinking about getting a little procedure here or there?
Yes, and I think it's such a personal question for themselves. I can guide people if I think they're going to do something dangerous or maybe it's not effective. But for the most part, I let my patients decide what's right for them as far as changing their looks.
Right. And it's amazing what weight or even diet or getting enough sleep, getting enough water can do to a person's looks. Let's get into some of that kind of holistic.
Sure. So some of the tips that I have for anti-aging are things that you can do now. You don't need to be under the care of a doctor's order. Things you can do. The most important thing really is sleep. And a lot of us are guilty of this where we just don't get enough sleep. We're running crazy. They found that if you sleep at least 7 to 8 hours a night, that what happens during the night when you sleep, your growth hormone, which is your anti-aging hormone, rises, and it allows to prevent cellular aging. So it has a big impact. Sleep also has a big impact on your immune system, which will help you fight off chronic disease. So if patients have insomnia or sleep apnea, they need to be under the care of a physician because it can shorten their lifespan.
I can imagine as you even walk around the mall or out in public and you see somebody who you say to yourself, I haven't examined them, but I think I know what's wrong with that person. Can you tell by looking at somebody, gosh,
Well, yes and no. Sometimes, certainly if you see somebody that's maybe 300 pounds, they're going to need to lose some weight. But you can't always tell. Sometimes people can look healthy, but they have disease markers that can make them unhealthy. So it's important that people get checked, go to the doctor, get your regular checkup, see an anti-aging specialist to find out how your body's aging.
Let's talk about hormone replacement therapy, because I know when it first came out years ago, I think it had a little bit of a mystery surrounding it, and it's becoming demystified. It's much more mainstream now, isn't it?
Yeah. So years ago, hormones have been around for a while, but more of the synthetic hormones were a problem and gave us a scare years ago. But now I'm treating with bioidentical hormone replacement, which is found to be safe if you use it in recommended doses.
Explain that. What does that mean?
Well, what we need to do with patients, we measure first. We test to see what the levels are, but then we also measure how patients metabolize hormones, which is what I learned in my fellowship program when I got board certified, was that we have to measure the metabolites because people metabolize hormones differently based on genetics, diet, lifestyle, nutrition, toxins. So we look at that.
And, these days, every time you turn on the radio, there's another low T commercial. There's not all doctors practice hormone replacement therapy the same way, do they?
That's correct. I think it's important to not just go to a couple of courses. I trained over 3 years learning about bioidentical hormone replacement. Again, the most important thing is not overdosing patients, checking metabolites, looking at history, because there's a lot of things that influence how our body handles hormones.
So as we age, we start to, like in a male, you start to lose some testosterone. Testosterone gives you energy. It helps with the way you metabolize food. Let's talk about just men for a second.
Sure.
How do you know whether or not you have a testosterone issue?
Well, we do questionnaires. A lot of times people have many symptoms of having low testosterone. We also check levels. And the main thing about testosterone in men, we talk about building stronger muscles, losing weight, and improving sex drive. But really the most important thing is preventing memory loss or dementia.
Really?
A lot of people don't realize that testosterone is important for memory loss.
Okay, let's talk about women. What kind of hormones are we talking about with women?
So with women, and again, I do measure all the hormones in patients. So I'm talking briefly on a few today, but we measure all your hormones. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, insulin, growth hormone, and thyroid, just to name a few.
Okay.
So in women, we look at those hormones. And in women, estrogen is really important for mood, sex drive, and it's also the main hormone that women need for memory prevention or for preventing dementia.
Really? So let's dive a little deeper. A woman comes to you. She says that she doesn't have a sex drive and she's low energy. Is she somebody who might be a candidate?
Yes. And another hormone I also measure is cortisol, because a lot of people think that, well, if I have low sex drive, then I must have low estrogen or I must have low testosterone. But cortisol and thyroid can also influence sex drive and energy.
And my impression is that you're not one of those physicians who instantly grabs the prescription pad and writes a prescription. There are some other ways to get to the root of the problem, isn't there?
Yeah. So I trained in a functional medicine program where we actually look at root cause of disease. So we take a step back and try to find out what's triggering that disease state. And then we try to work on that instead of just writing a prescription. So if you came in with autoimmune Hashimoto's thyroid disease, I would give you thyroid medication most likely, but then I would look to see what's triggering that immune response.
And
it takes time to do that. So I spend a lot of time with patients. I spend about an hour to hour and a half at the initial visit just reviewing everything.
My sense is, and tell me if I'm off base here, that your body is kind of a natural pharmacy. It can produce all kinds of healthy, natural medicine, but sometimes if you're not getting enough sleep or water or rest, your ability to distribute or disperse those natural chemicals is reduced. Do I have that right?
That's correct, and you actually stated that very well. So, and one of the hormones that's important is cortisol. So cortisol is secreted when you're stressed out. So sometimes I can have a patient come in that just strictly has a cortisol issue, and I tend to see this in younger patients. If we work on their cortisol only, it'll balance all their other hormones without actually having to give them hormone replacement.
Dr. Lyn Berutti is my guest right now. She is a physician owner of Dynamic Life Health Center in Southlake. The website is dynamiclifehealthcenter.com. Tell me a story. You don't have to name the patient, but when you think about what you do and why it's so important, does a patient come to mind?
Wow. A lot of patients come to mind, but I think just spending the time with patients is important. Sometimes they'll come in and may come in 2 or 3 visits and we still haven't hit what's going on primarily. So you need to do a comprehensive approach, spend time with them, and actually take the time to listen to what they're saying. And I think that really makes a big difference as to getting to the root cause of what's going on.
Now, what do you do when your patient is stubborn and you've told them visit after visit you really need to lose some weight or you really need to cut down on the caffeine and they just won't listen? I mean, do you practice tough love, or at what point do you say, hey, we've talked about that and your cholesterol is going up, not down? I mean, how do you handle a patient that just won't listen?
Yeah, I see that a lot in patients where they just are resistant. They're not seeing the light, and you certainly don't want them to get to an end point where they have a complication from not seeing the light. But over time, and I think with explaining what happens if you don't, makes a big difference. I also give people references of books to read, handouts, anything we can. And we keep in close contact with our patients
And
to help them to meet their goals.
I was in your office last week, and very clean. It's very nice and upscale, and it's right there in Southlake. Describe where it is.
Yeah, so I'm in Southlake. I'm just west of Southlake Town Center on 1709 and very close to Carroll Senior High School.
And so when you changed your practice to go from just more of a family medicine to kind of a specialty in anti-aging, did you find that your patients kind of went with you, or what happened?
Yes, a lot of my patients followed me over, and then I began to develop other new patients that were coming in through referrals of other patients. Once I got board certified in anti-aging, I think that's when I started bringing in a whole nother clientele. And so that's how I got started.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time for this segment.
Well, thank you.
Let's plug your website one more time.
Yes, so it's dynamiclifehealthcenter.com.
Awesome. Dr.
Okay,
Lyn Berutti,
thank you.
you so much for joining us.
All right.
When we come back, the man behind the curtains. What? That's quite a tease. You'll meet him. He's an incredibly successful man, very inspiring. That's next on The Jeff Crilley Show.